Hi everyone, this is
Ivan
and Alexandra from Staex. We are happy to welcome you on our podcast series where we talk about topics that are either directly related to IoT or somehow connected, where we discuss the problems, the issues of today's internet and how you can build the most secure application with your IoT devices. If you have any topics that you would like us to discuss, post it under this video in the comments. We're happy to look into them.
Please subscribe to our channel where we share our experience in IoT industry and educational content.
We also look in what is actually happening in the hacker world. Today we decided to look into a very interesting article by Bill Tullis. It's called Leaky Vessels Flaws Allow Hackers to Escape Docker Run C Containers. So Leaky Vessels, it's 4 CVEs that they found. So it's a package of vulnerabilities, and they cover 21626, they cover 23651, 23652 and 23653 in case you want to Google them on the CVE 2024 report list. Docker inside the IoT context. When you Dockerize, when do you do native? What are the advantages and disadvantages? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about this.
Sure. Docker is the process isolation technology, which means that in contrast to virtual machines, this technology is not full isolation. It's not like having a new machine running on top of a physical one. It's like having a process run in the box. And this box can sometimes be broken. The main reason why many containers are not safe, or I would say many container images are not safe, because people don't know how to make them. They include everything, like all sorts of packages inside. Some containers even contain the editor commands to edit files, which of course they shouldn't contain this. Obviously, it's not needed on the server, and also so if you have these files, especially if you have shell interpreter, then your attack surface is much greater, because if someone tries to hack you, then they will have access to this interpreter.
If you want to maximize your attack surface, these were all the techniques. How exactly you can do this?
But this vulnerability, Leaky Vessels, it's not about the images themselves, it's about Docker. Docker, unfortunately, also has flaws, mainly because this is a huge system. Although it's open sourced, and now it contains several components like run C, container runtime, and they're all separate and semi-standardized. They still have this huge amount of effort put to actually create this piece of technology. And they have flaws. One of the flaws that they mention in this Leaky Vessels article is the flaw with the working directory. It's a command inside the Docker file that switches your working directory to another one. This working directory also used when you run the container. Somehow you can manipulate this command and to access the host operating system. It's like disregarding Docker completely. Yeah, it's like your box is not closed at all. So your process run in the box which doesn't have the walls. Obviously, how to mitigate this vulnerability? Of course, to update the Docker. But how do you mitigate future vulnerabilities? You have to have another layer of security, because the process isolation is not enough, and you need isolation on the network level. You need isolation on operating system level. Maybe virtual machines is much better for you. I don't know. It depends on the use case, and of course you need to think about using maybe zero trust networks, which is the evolution of VPNs, and these networks provide you much better isolation for network nodes. So even if you caught some virus, then it will not be able to spread to other machines.
Can you explain a little bit more, because I think it will be very useful, how, like we discussed that the Docker isolates the process. Now we talk about zero trust, which is on a network level. Maybe you can explain a little bit more this process, like what exactly happens. We caught the virus. Does it mean with zero trust it doesn't go to the bigger architecture? Maybe you can explain a little bit for the sake of simplicity how this is connected.
There are multiple ways you can get a virus on your server or on your IT device. The most straightforward one is to exploit some zero-day vulnerability of your device or your operating system or your, I don't know, PHP server, whatever, and to use this vulnerability to deploy your code, to execute your an attacker code on the server. And then this code will call home, and then it will try to spread to all other machines in the network. And basically, it has a lot of freedom if you don't use zero trust.
Call home, it's the black hat guy. This is the bad attacker that is sitting in a bunker.
Yeah.
It's not the home.
Yes, all these programs, they are distributed and they need to access the control node, which is located somewhere abroad.
They call it CC, right? Command and Control Server. They have their own infrastructure, the hackers.
Yeah, and if you block this access, obviously this infected machine can be just destroyed and rebuilt from scratch.
Right.
Then you will not have this problem with the viruses. So how you can protect from calling home? The best way to do this is to make a whitelist of DNS names and IP addresses to which your applications that run on your machine or inside your Docker container can access, can make requests to, and block everything else. So the whitelist approach always works because it's really brutal. You just specify that it can call GitHub Docker registry and that's it. And after that, all this attack surface is basically destroyed. You have only few holes through which anything can infiltrate your machine.
All right, so whitelisting over blacklisting. This is very important information in security.
Yeah. And this is the concept. This is exactly the concept that zero trust networks use. They expose as few possible endpoints as needed by the applications, and all other endpoints, all other ports, all other IP addresses, they are all blocked, and you don't have any access besides the access that administrator specifically mentioned in the configuration.
So can we say that zero trust networks also automate the whitelisting a little bit? So it's not only because it used to be done manual, right, and many years ago.
Yes, still this blacklisting is the most popular way of doing the same. And here I'm not talking about the ports themselves. So when you open or close ports on firewall, of course everybody close all the ports. I'm talking about the traffic itself. So for example, if you have the system with the backend server in the cloud, for example, and to this server you connect your devices or your other clients, depending on your business, you can SSH from your laptop to the cloud to this backend server, and then from backend server to the devices. But you can also SSH back from the devices to the server, and this is how it works. So this is how the virus can spread, and you should definitely take this into account. And zero trust networks, they just eliminate this problem by design because they use whitelisting instead of blacklisting, and whitelisting is easier is easier to make secure.
Right.
So it's like security by default. So by default, you have the network, but it doesn't really send the data because everything is blocked.
What is the stage of Docker involvement inside IoT business? Like, is it something that is helping? Is it something that no one is using? Like, what is your take on the Docker?
No. Everyone uses Docker. We have, of course, you can't run on the devices themselves because
Right.
they are too tiny. Instead, the Docker containers are run on the IoT gateways, which is a fancy name for the powerful router or even a computer to which you connect your actual IoT devices. Usually it's a router, but there are many custom models on the market. So, and these models are both computers and the routers. So they're both powerful computers and also the routers with a lot of ports. Yeah, and basically this is where the edge computing flourish because usually they want some pre-processing to be done on the edge and then to send the results to the cloud.
Okay.
This is how it's used right now.
It's mostly used. So that's why, just to connect the dots, it can be an important topic what we're discussing right now, this vulnerability for your specific application in case your IoT gateways are managed by the Docker. So what is you mentioned already, you need to do the update. So is it everything that needs to be done? Because I think they kind of extensively describe that community already made some effort to fix what they have explored, so to say.
I think they already fixed this because usually this is fixed before we know this. So they have already rolled out the updates. And yeah, you need to update the Docker.
So they say here it's like to the version 4.27.0. This is the newer one that doesn't have this vulnerability. And this has been already released, I guess. Anything else that might be of use?
Yeah, usually people mistake the Docker with the
silver bullet for security?
No, they think that the Docker security is really higher than just running a process without Docker.
Okay.
I don't think so because, like in practice, unfortunately, it is not. So in theory, yeah, of course, it is higher. And the problem with the Docker is that most of the containers are created by people who don't know how to do this because they are developers, they are not system administrators. And they probably have never done this on like manually on the system.
Right.
And they run their containers as super user. And of course, if you, for example, if you run your container with a regular user, and then this vulnerability happen, then you will not have access. Like the attacker will not have access to the system. However, many people disregard this simple technique, which was the main. This was the main isolation technique before Docker, and then before this Linux namespaces, which is a backbone for the Docker isolation.
I understand. All right, so just coming to an end, I think just to summarize, as usual in our podcasts, we conclude with the fact that you just have to use multiple levels of security, like Onion, like we covered in one of the podcasts before. Also, it's important not to put too much into the Docker because then you just broaden the surface of your attack. About the user rights, that's important to remember that not everything must be run as a super user. Also, a little bit whitelisting concept here.
Yeah, it's mainly zero trust concept, which is more popular term, I believe, but it's based on whitelisting. So anything is disabled by default, and unless you enable this in the configuration.
Right. And yeah, so I think if you run the latest version, you're safe. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Conclude. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to our channel. Get connected with us, and yeah, happy to cover the latest vulnerability reports for you in this podcast. Bye-bye.
Staex provides the most secure public network where companies can connect their IoT devices easily and forget about their problems with cybersecurity once and for all.